I want to start off by appreciating something that I usually don't mention in my reviews, and that is the structure of the chapter. The structure of this chapter was phenomenal. I mean, I read this thing in Korean, and the structure was just so amazing. I didn't even know what they were saying, what the characters were saying or anything. I didn't understand anything, but visually speaking, this was in Korean, and I knew it was going to be a fantastic chapter because it literally feels like a countdown is going on. You feel like dun, 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 dun. Phenomenal, amazing pacing. And I don't know if that's something that Oda decided to do by himself, if he decided to organize these panels the way that he did, or if it was an editor's note or the assistants helped him out, but whatever. Whoever decided the pacing of this chapter is a genius. It kind of feels like he's like conducting an orchestra. This is a storytelling technique that not a lot of authors have, and I get the feeling that this tension, this feel with the countdown is the same feel that Oda wanted to achieve back in Dressrosa when the birdcage was closing in on the citizens, except this moment felt like it was better executed this time around. That being said, we start off with the Tontaras. Again, I think this should be the last cover page that we get from them, and then we go over to the giants, to Harjundin or Harjundin, whatever you want to call them. It turns out the Tontaras are going to be going to the revelry, which is kind of funny. They're escorts, and we see King Riku there. My first reaction was to think, wait, they're barely leaving? Like, they're kind of late. But then I remembered that the only reason I thought that was because we saw other people leaving their islands before, like Vivi, and technically speaking, Alabasta is a lot further away from Marijoa than Dressrosa. So it makes sense that they're barely leaving right now. Seems like there's going to be a lot of Luffy sympathizers at the revelry, and I personally can't wait for one of the Gorosei, one of the elders, to look upon the Tontara with contempt and say something like, "Who brought these dwarves to my door?" We start off with Rayleigh, and that flashback is just filled with connections, to other things. The first one I noticed was when Luffy refuses to take food from the animals, and he's like, no, Rayleigh said I wouldn't eat, so I'm not eating, which, you know, not only speaks to his level of discipline, but I think it's also a reference to that point in time when he vowed that he wouldn't eat anything unless it came from Sanji, that Sanji would cook for him. So he was kind of trained for that as well by not eating when Rayleigh told him not to. Not only that, but if you remember during his fight with Sanji, which wasn't really a fight, Luffy says to Sanji, despite the fact that you were the one kicking me, you were the one landing hits, the one who was really in pain was you. And that, I think right here in this flashback, Rayleigh states that Luffy has the ability to use his observation haki to sense other people's feelings. So not only is this a reference to the Sanji thing, and then later on it obviously becomes a reference to the Katakuri fight, I still think the future seeing ability is also a reference to something that the admirals could do. I already talked about this, but in Marineford, there's clear evidence to suggest that admirals have the same ability that Katakuri has, where we see Aokiji opening up a hole like to avoid an attack from Whitebeard. And if Aokiji fought Akainu and Akainu won the fight, we can only assume that Akainu has that ability too. Not only that, but the way that Rayleigh phrases his comment, he says, "It seems you are adept at sensing the emotions of living things." And we've seen examples of Luffy using this type of observation before, like, you know, just out of the top of my head, like how he picks crewmates. He's very intuitive. Like with Robin, right? Robin was like a very troubled person, and he still pushed through because I think he knew deep down that she was experiencing a lot of pain. So, you know, he still went on that journey to try and save her because I think, you know, for a certain extent of Aeneas Lobby in Water 7, he could feel Robin's emotion. So that comment by Rayleigh really made me think about one of Goldie Roger's abilities that was, you know, previously stated that he had, which is his ability to hear the voice of all things. And so Rayleigh would obviously know what it looks like when that ability manifests itself through observation haki because he was Goldie Roger's number 2. That being said, the flashback also is very good at establishing limitations. He says, even if you spent 2 years training with me, that will not be enough for you to reach that level of mastery over the future seeing part of observation haki. Like, these guys train for way more than just 2 years. So even after that, you're still not ready. And that brings me to my next point, which is if you look at the panel where Luffy is closing his eyes to sense Katakuri's movements, the way Katakuri's silhouette is drawn, the way those punches look, it's pretty much the same way. It's the same version of observation haki that we've seen Fujitora, an admiral, use before. Capone is changing directions, or at least he's not going to Liquor Island anymore, which in my opinion is a good thing because as some of you guys pointed out, Liquor Island is just filled with alcohol. So if Prometheus, which is like literally like a mini version of the sun, gets close to that much alcohol, there's going to be a massive explosion. So they're changing the direction, or at least they're not stopping at Liquor Island. They're going to Fluffy Island, based off of Chiffon's recommendation. So that takes care of that. And you know what Big Mom looks like in that panel where we see that she's starving and she's like really skinny? She looks a lot like Brulee. So now I see the family resemblance. Now what her current state says about her durability and endurance stats as a Yonko and how long she would last in a fight in a 1v1 versus another Yonko if she were hungry, I'm not going to get into that. And again, I owe it all thanks to the pacing and structure of this chapter because again, I feel like the reader has no choice. It's so well structured that the reader has no choice but to just go with it. Also, the chapter makes it seem as if Capone really didn't have a well thought out plan to capture Big Mom after she ate the cake once they arrived at Liquor Island. Then we go to Smoothie chasing the Sunny, and I'm a little bit surprised that Sanji just decided to leave, but he did mention that he had a plan in order to make sure that they can make their exit via Cacao Island. So what that plan is, I don't know, but he's off. He just went away with Pudding and her magic carpet, and also the little like amoeba character, which I think is still a homie made out of Capone's soul. Anyway, you got the best navigator and the best helmsman paired up, and they're dodging these slashes from Smoothie, which appear to be slashes that are made out of or composed out of liquid, because if you look at Smoothie's sword, it's like dripping some type of liquid. She also got a lot taller so that she could sort of like aim better, I'm guessing. And I think Brooke says, is that is Smoothie a giant? I don't think it is. I think it's related to her devil fruit because she has the ability, in a certain way, Smoothie has the ability to manipulate liquid. So I'm assuming it's kind of like she's manipulating the liquids inside of her body. I know it sounds weird. The bodily fluids within her body to make herself bigger in size. And there's also a brief moment of foreshadowing when Chopper asks Carrot, hey, can Nekomamushi and Inuarashi transform like you do? And he gets cut off. We don't get an answer, but whenever we don't get an answer to something that's so obvious, it's a yes. It's clear foreshadowing from Oda. Yes, they can transform. And once we get to Wano, it's going to be beastly. Dun, 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 dun. Time is running out, and Sanji says, I'm ready. I'm going to save my captain. So he's going to Cacao Island to be there, hopefully by the mirror, so that he can rescue Luffy once he has that draw with Katakuri and is incapable of moving by himself. I think that's what he means. But anyway, we go to Cacao Island, and boy, they called out everybody. I mean, sons and daughters of the Charlotte family galore. Now, apparently, sons 36 to 40 and daughters 30 to 34 came out as a package. I mean, Mom had to push out 10 babies at one time, all together. We got all these characters, once again, named after desserts. Brownie, Jaconde, Raisin, which I don't really like raisins, but whatever. And then we have the former fourth Sweet Commander of the Charlotte family. So he got demoted. He lost his job as a Sweet Commander. Commander Snack finally revealed his design in the manga, and this has to be the funniest panel in the entire chapter, because he's like, they're talking about the Straw Hats and how there's like literally just 10 people, but they have to be very cautious because they're a huge threat. And Snack is just like, oh, you know the Arush flashbacks are hitting Snack hard at this point because he's like, is that one of the guys from the worst generations? That Arush beating is coming back, man. Please tell me his name's not Mad Monk. So at this point in time, Snack be crossing his fingers for Oven to send him away to check on Brother Cracker. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, I'll take the L right now if it means not facing any more worst generation people.
Okay, now we can get to the fight. We left off with Luffy dodging punches. There is a moment where Katakuri very smartly adapts to the situation and sees that Luffy is dodging, so he uses his future sight ability to stretch out a leg and land a kick on Luffy's footing. Luffy has to jump. He's forced to jump forward to avoid the kick, but then Katakuri predicts that or knows that that's what he was going to do and just greets Luffy with a punch to the face. Great move from Katakuri. Luffy then tries to block Katakuri's hits, but his defense is still not enough. His armament haki gets busted up. Okay, you see his hands throbbing because Block Mochi is just that much stronger. The only thing that Luffy has that can compete with Block Mochi is Gear Force. That was the sound of Katakuri's grilled mochi sending Luffy through some walls. And essentially, that is the Katakuri version of a Red Hawk because it uses heat. First of all, his arm expands, kind of like inflates a little bit. It's a long-range attack that nails Luffy to some rubble. And based off of what's coming up next, what we know is coming up next, I bet you he's going to be using that attack a lot more due to its speed. Okay, so Luffy is going into some rubble. He comes out with a Gatling and actually manages to land a punch on Katakuri this time, but not before Katakuri is able to regenerate his arm from the grilled mochi attack. Now in this chapter, Katakuri uses his awakening the same way that Doflamingo used it in Dressrosa to affect his surroundings, to affect some of the structures, the floor of the mirror world, to turn into these pillars and use that to come at Luffy from all different directions to try and land some damage. So you can definitely expect the anime episodes to expand on this aspect of the fight by showing more of Katakuri manipulating the mirror world surroundings to try and land some damage. Again, Luffy's durability is insane. His base durability is he just keeps getting back up. That's been established. It's crazy. Now, I don't know if this was Oda's intention, but there is a panel in this chapter where Katakuri smashes Luffy into a staircase, into some stairs, just using the spur on his boot. So he uses his heel and just smashes Luffy. Luffy loses a tooth thanks to the attack. This is the second time it's happened this arc. The first time was against Sanji, now against Katakuri. But the way I thought about it was this. Since we know that the theme of Whole Cake Island in general is Disney and Alice in Wonderland related, I thought about Toy Story. Maybe I'm reaching a little bit here, but based off of the way that the chapter ends, it reminded me of Woody. When you pull his string, one of the things that Woody says is, "There's a snake in my boot." And I find it hilarious that by the end of this chapter, Katakuri just seems super insulted and offended. He's like, "Is that all you got?" And last week he was like, "Why didn't you dodge? Why didn't you dodge?" This fight has now shifted to being more about honor, pride, and personal character than it is about who's going to win and who's going to lose. Especially given the way that Katakuri has been acting. Again, there's been numerous occasions where Katakuri has Luffy on the ground and he doesn't touch him. He doesn't touch him. And there's a line in this chapter where Katakuri says to Luffy, "Rise to the challenge, Straw Hat." And so when I read that he said that, I was like, wait, hold on, time out. Katakuri, did Rayleigh pay you to train Luffy at this point? What is going on? Dun, 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 dun. Gomu, gomu, no. Look at that panel. Tell me you didn't think about this moment back in Dressrosa when he activated Gear Force for the first time and we were left on a cliffhanger and emotions were high and everybody was hyped. In this case, he can barely stand up because of the beating. So he's like, Gear Force. Oh no, no, man, the Snake Man. Oh my God, Snake Man, dude. Snake Man. What is this even gonna look like? I got Naruto flashbacks. I thought about Mitsuki, alright? Like Snake Sage Mode, essentially. It amplifies the senses. Haki coded and everything. Oda made it a special point to show that Luffy's eyes are shaded, but then it goes back to Gear Force, so I'm not really sure how that's going to work for the design. It's pretty much confirmed that Snake Man is a speed form. It has to be. Bound Man is offense, Tank Man is defense, Snake Man has to be speed.
If we're going by Pokemon stats, Gear 4 still needs a special defense and a special attack form, which I'm assuming if he gets Awakening, he'll be able to incorporate that into these other forms of Gear 4th. And then finally, I feel like Gear 5th would be an incorporation of all of these stats into one. And then if we're talking HP, it'll probably be something that allows him to reserve some of his Haki so that he doesn't use it all up in one go.
And there's actually a very clear strategic reason for as to why Luffy's form has to be speed-based. And that is because even if Katakuri can see into the future, all right, it won't matter because he won't be able to react to Luffy's movements if Luffy's speed is over the top. If Luffy is just that much faster than Katakuri, it won't matter if Katakuri can see into the future because his body won't be as fast as Luffy's and he won't be able to react to that. I feel that's the play that Oda is trying to make with this revelation, with this new form. He's going to start bypassing Future Sight and he'll start landing a lot more attacks consecutively that way. Which again goes back to my initial assessment that I think that Katakuri will be forced to use grilled mochi? Yeah, grilled mochi a lot more because that's one of the fastest attacks that he has. The problem with using that attack though is that it technically does leave him open for damage because his limbs take time to regenerate, and so Luffy could view that as an opening and take advantage of that. I have no problem saying this. This is the best chapter of this arc since the Tamate Bako box went off and made the castle collapse and everybody got wrecked at the tea party. That's how good this chapter was. Absolutely tremendous. So much content to cover. My throat literally hurts. Doesn't matter. You can like the video or not. The chapter's great either way. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already because I plan on doing a follow-up video primarily focused on Luffy but One Piece related. And subscribe anyway because I do One Piece reviews whenever the chapter comes out. I'm sorry this one is late, but I had work and the chapter was early anyway. And it was a pain to have to wait to do this because it was just so, I was so excited to get to talk about this with you guys. But thanks again. Catch you guys later. Bye.